Hello friends, welcome to UPSC Logics and my name is Siddharth and today I am going to discuss the course of Surat split 1907. So this is part 2 of the origin of Surat split, and if you haven't seen that video, please do watch that video as well. So in this video we are going to discuss the role of the hardliners, then we shall have a look at the attempts at reconciliation. Number 3, we shall have a look at the Surat incident that happened at the Surat session. Number 4, we shall have a look at the formalization of the split. And number 5, we shall have a look at the government crackdown and the aftermaths of the split. So let us begin this topic. Now let us have a look at the role of hardliners on both the sides. And there were hardliners actually on both the sides. So on the extremist side it was Aurobindo Ghosh, on the moderate side it was Pheroze Mehta. So when the boycott and the Swadeshi movement started in Bengal, the extremists really believed that it was the battle of independence that has started. So they really wanted the Swadeshi movement to be extended to whole of India, as well as boycott of not only the foreign goods and cloths, but the boycott of all the associations with the colonial rulers. And they believed that this would be the big push that would drag the Britishers out of the country. But the moderates did not agree with them, and the extremists started to believe that the moderates were dragging the movement. So when the Morley and Minto or Morley Minto offered some kind of reforms in the legislative councils in 1906, the moderates had gone ahead and started discussing these reforms with the British. So the extremists were really aghast with this kind of behavior, that when a movement is going on in the country, the moderates were actually going on discussing reforms in the legislative councils with the enemy. So most of the extremists under Aurobindo Ghosh had decided that if the moderates were not going to change their ways, it was time to split up with the moderates and go on their own way. The moderates were also no different, and a huge faction of the moderates under Feroze Shah Mehta believed that the extremists were treading onto dangerous waters. So they really did not want to get into the bad books of the government, and they feared that whatever they had built in the last 20 years of Congress, they would lose it all, because they feared that the government was really going to come down with a severe crackdown on the Congress as well as the movement, and they did not really wanted to invite this premature repression of Congress. So we can see that on both sides, while the reasons were different, they both wanted to go there on their own separate ways. Now there were leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Gokhale on both the sides. So Tilak was a leader of the extremist while Gokhale was on the moderate side, and Tilak and Gokhale both were aware of the dangers of disunity in the top ranks. So Tilak knew that no national movement can be launched without the unity in ranks, and he tried to keep the ranks united, but there was a severe backlash or the hatred amongst the moderates that had already arisen amongst the ranks of the extremists. So his tactics didn't work, and when it came to the crunch time, he had to go with other extremist leaders like Aurobindo Ghosh. And Gokhale also knew about this whole no national movement thing without the unity in ranks, and he knew what was happening, that the split was inevitable, but he did not have the personality to stop it. So Feroze Shah Mehta, who was also another leader of the moderates, had a much stronger personality, and he could really tell the moderates or guide the moderates in which way they had to go. Now in the Calcutta session that happened in 1906, the split was almost done, but it was avoided by the choice of Dadabhai Naoroji as the president. So he was a well-respected leader, and both the extremists and the moderates thought that it was okay to have him as the president. And the four resolutions of Swadeshi, boycott, national education, and self-government were passed by the Congress in that session. But the rest of the year had gone fighting between the moderates and the extremists on their own interpretation of the resolution. So the moderates interpreted it differently, while the extremists interpreted it in a different manner. So the rest of the year was gone fighting, and the next session was on 26 December 1907 at Surat on the banks of river Tapti. Now in this session, there was excitement among the extremists as they had been hearing rumors that the moderates wanted to remove the 4 Calcutta resolutions. And the extremists had been pouring venom in this regard in public meetings against the moderates for the last 3 days before 26 December 1907. So the moderates were extremely upset with the extremists that they had been talking bad about them to the public, and they wanted to select Ras Bihari Ghosh as the president. So the extremists wanted to arm twist the moderates, and they wanted the 4 resolutions to be passed. So they objected to the selection of Ras Bihari Ghosh. And soon there was chaos and chairs being thrown around, and there were almost 1600 people in the hall. So you can imagine that how much chaos there was happening. And during this chaos, somebody threw a shoe at Pheroze Mehta and surendra banerjee. So that was the end of the whole thing, and police came and the session was over. And this was ultimately the split of the Congress into extremists and the moderate factions. The only beneficiary out of the split was the British. Now Tilak was a sensible leader, and he had been trying to avoid the split in the Congress since the 1906 session, because he knew that no national movement can be launched without the unity in the factions of the Congress, and he was taken aback by what happened at the Surat session. So he tried to reconcile with the moderates and even sent letters to his opponents accepting Ras Bihari Ghosh as the president. The moderates, on the other hand, were adamant and they did not really want to do anything with the extremists, so they gave up all the radical measures that they had been adopted in the Banaras and the Calcutta sessions and decided that no, they would no longer go along with the extremist leaders. So this was the formalization of the split. So the government took this opportunity to create a massive crackdown on the extremist leaders. The extremist newspapers were suppressed, and Tilak and the main leaders were arrested and sent to Mandalay jail for 6 years. Aurobindo Ghosh, on the other hand, was involved in a revolutionary conspiracy, but on being judged innocent, he left politics and settled in Pondicherry. BC Paul temporarily retired from politics, and Lala Lajpat Rai left for Britain in 1908. So we can see that the whole leadership of the extremists had gone. So the movement declined on a whole, but wasn't gone completely. So the sparks of the movement were still left, and that sense of nationalism that had developed in the people was still around. So they were waiting for the next phase, and in 1914, when Tilak was released, he took up the threads of the movement from there on. So friends, this brings us to the end of this video on the course of Surat split. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you're watching the channel for the first time, do like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to get the latest notifications from UPSC Logics. Thank you so much for watching, and Jai Hind.